Okay, we're going to start the Gemara towards the bottom of Chafei with Beis. We read this yesterday, but we're going to be learning a hamshach of a sugi here on this subject. So let's start a little bit on the bottom, and also I want to correct how I read it yesterday. The Gemara here brings up a case where a person has hana from anything that's asur to have hana of bal karchach. In other words, you're not intending to. You just go somewhere and the hana happens. Are you over? Is there any isser in that? So the Gemara brings a machlokes of Abaye and Rava. Abaye says it's allowed, and Rava says it's forbidden. So the question is, what is the exact case that they're arguing about? The Gemara brought two different versions of what the case is that they're arguing about. The first version of the Gemara was in a case of efsher v'loy mechaven. Efsher v'loy mechaven means it's easy for you to go somewhere else, and you're going in this place where there's an isser hana. But loy mechaven, at the same time though, you're not having kavanah to derive any benefit. You're not enjoying it, you don't want it. You go there even though you could have gone somewhere else, efsher, but loy mechaven. That was the first version of the Gemara. The second version of the Gemara, let's read it inside. Ikke da Amri. About 7-8 lines from the bottom. Ikke da Amri. The second version here is efsher v'loy mechaven. Hainu pluktaya de Rabbi Yehuda v'Rab Shimon. In a case where you could have gone somewhere else and you're not having kavanah to have any benefit, this is the machlokes of Rabbi Yehuda and Rab Shimon. The Gemara here brings up the famous machlokes of Rabbi Yehuda and Rab Shimon regarding a person that's over isser and has no kavanah. Einem miskaven. Rabbi Yehuda holds einem miskaven regarding all isurim. Einem miskaven is asser, and Rab Shimon holds einem miskaven is mutter. So in a case of efsher v'loy mechaven, this is the machlokes of Rabbi Yehuda and Rab Shimon. Efsher v'loy mechaven. If it's a case where you could have gone somewhere else and you're not having any kavanah, kula amalei pligi deshari. Everybody would agree in such a case that it's allowed because you're not having kavanah. I skipped one word, sorry. Lo yefsher. Lo yefsher v'lo kamachaven. You couldn't have gone anywhere else. And you're not having any kavanah. So then, nobody would disagree that it's allowed. Ki pligi. Where's the machlokes? And this is the main case the Gemara is going to focus on. So let's see what the Gemara here says. When is the argument, if you're going to be over or not, the lo yafsher, it's you can't go somewhere else, and I explained already, not can't doesn't mean physically can't. Can't means it's very difficult to go somewhere else. The ka mechaven. But as you're going there, you're having kavana, you're enjoying the isser hana. Va'aliba de Rab Shimon. Now, according to Rab Shimon, the azl basa kavana, he says the most significant thing to look at is the person's kavana. Kula amalei pligidasa. Nobody would disagree that according to Rab Shimon, now that you're having kavanah, you're being over an isser, even though it was very difficult for you to go somewhere else. But now that you're having kavanah, it's asa. Ki pligi, where's the machlokes of Abaye and Rava? The Rabbi Yehuda, it's according to the Aliba de Rabbi Yehuda. It's according to Rabbi Yehuda. The Amar Rabbi Yehuda says, Lo yishna miskaven, v'lo yishna she'ein miskaven. That it does not matter your kavanah. Rabbi Yehuda holds when it comes to any isser, the kavanah of the person is insignificant. Efsher. If you could have gone somewhere else and you're going into this place, asr. You're being over on an isser even without kavanah. So that's what we see from Rabbi Yehuda, that he says that he's machmer. Rabbi Yehuda is more stringent, and your kavanah doesn't matter. Without kavanah, you're over. So now Abaye ka Rabbi Yehuda. Abaye that says that it's permitted in a case where it's lo yefsher. In this case of lo yefsher, Abaye is going to say like Rabbi Yehuda. Why is it according to Rabbi Yehuda? Because the way Abaye understands Rabbi Yehuda is kavanah is insignificant. What is significant? What matters if you're over the isser or not? Efsher or lo yefsher. If you have an option easily to go somewhere else, you're going to be over. Why did you go here? If you don't have an easy option to go somewhere else, you're not going to be over. So therefore, Abaye says we take Rabbi Yehuda's opinion both stringent and lenient. It only is dependent on whether you could go somewhere else or not. Rava says that's not the way to understand Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. When does Rabbi Yehuda say that your kavanah does not matter? And even without kavanah, you're going to be over. That's to say that without kavanah, you're over even like having kavanah. So this only goes to be stringent. But to say that even that you did have kavanah, yet it's going to be like you did not have kavanah. Why? Because you couldn't go somewhere else. To say that because it was lo yefsher, it should be mutter, and it should be as if you had no kavanah. To be lenient about this, Rabbi Yehuda never said that. To this extent, Rabbi Yehuda didn't go. Rabbi Yehuda was only saying l'chumra, that you don't need kavanah to be over. But he did not say l'kula, that without kavanah, Because it was with kavanah, that is, because you couldn't go somewhere else, you're not going to be over. So this is the machlokes of Abaye and Rava in the second version. And what's the case? Loi efsher. It was very difficult for you to go somewhere else, but v'kol mechaven. When you go there, you're having kavanah to be. You're having kavanah. You're enjoying the iser. So now the Gemara is going to bring different sources and questions on this machlokes. Amar Abaye, Mina min Allah. What's the source to my opinion? The Tanya we learned in the Braisa. Amru alav Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. They said about Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai that lived in the end of the second Beis Hamikdash. Shahaya Yoshev b'tziloi shel heichal. He would sit in the shade of the heichal. The heichal, of course, was a structure that was built very, very tall. It was 100 amas high. Rashi says that the shade that the heichal made to even in a far place, like a big street in the front of the Har HaBayis, it was a huge area that they had a lot of shade from the heichal. So he would sit there in that shade. And there he had space to gather people, a huge space that he could sit and darshan the halachas of Yom Tov. So Rashi says, in a shul, he wouldn't have a shul large enough to have all the people come and sit there all day and listen to him darshaning the halachas. If you would have to sit outside in the sun, they wouldn't listen to him. So he had a perfect place to use the shade of the heichal to be able to sit there all day and darshan. So he had a no from the shade of the Beis Hamikdash. Now, are you allowed to have a no from the Beis Hamikdash? No, it's Me'ila. You're having a no from the Beis Hamikdash. So now, what is this case compared to? Says the Gemara, V'hahacha du lo yefsher. This is a case that would be considered to be lo yefsher. He didn't have another choice. What else is he going to do? Rashi says he has to darshan b'rabim, the halachas of Yom Tov. So what else should he do? So this is the only place he found. U'mechaven, yet they're having kavanah. They're enjoying the shade. The only reason they could learn is because they're in the shade. So this is a case of lo yefsher and mechaven. Vishari and Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai did this, and he says it's allowed. So over here, Abaye says from Rabbi Yochanan's conduct, I see that in a case of lo yefsher, even though you're having kavanah to have a no, yet it's allowed. Rav responds to this and says, no, that case is different. Shani heichal de l'toichai osoi. The heichal is built not for the shade that it creates far away. The heichal is built for the inside of the Beis Hamikdash. So therefore, what's the Gemara saying? So Rashi explains what the Gemara is saying is this is considered to be a hana shaloi kedarka. We had previously in Daf Chav Gimel or Chav Dalet, the Gemara says when you have a hana of something shaloi kedarka, not its intended use, you're not over. So therefore, this is something that's shaloi kedarka, and therefore Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was mad to this. Now this itself is a chiddush. There's other Rishonim that have other pshatim in what the Gemara's answer is. Shani heichal. The Ben Chananel, for example, says the pshat in the Gemara's answer is ve'ein kedusha betzilai. Ben Chananel says because the heichal is built for the inside, so the shade that's created from the heichal has no kedusha. What's shade has no kedusha b'chlal. That's the Ben Chananel's pshat. But Rashi's pshat, as I mentioned, is that this is considered to be a hana shaloi kedarka. Usually, hana shaloi kedarka is mutam and atayre, but it is asam v'derabbanan. However, here, for this purpose, for whatever reason, even with the Rabbanan, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai allowed it and gave his drasha there in that place. So Rava says there's no rai from here. It's not the regular kind of hana. Now, Omar Rava, Minoah min Allah, from where do I have a source for the fact that in this case, when it's lo yefshe and it's mechaven, it's going to be aser, the Tanya, or the Tanan, we learned in the Mishnah, lulin, hoyu, psuchin, baliyas, beis kachek kadoshim. There was a opening, a window, or like a skylight that was opened in the roof of the Kodesh HaKadoshim. For what purpose? Shebehen mishalshelin esa umonin betevis. So they would lower down craftsmen that would have to fix things in the Kodesh HaKadoshim in a box. Kidei shelo yazunu einayim mibeis Kodesh HaKadoshim. In order that they should not, and the box would be closed from all sides, and then they would make a little opening on that side where they have to go and fix the wall or whatever it is, in order that their eyes should not derive benefit from being inside the Kodesh HaKadoshim. You're not allowed to derive the benefit of the Kodesh HaKadoshim. So if they have to go inside, so they lowered them down inside. They didn't come in from the regular entrance because just coming in from the regular entrance is already an Isser. So they came in from an unusual entrance. And also that itself in a box, in order that they shouldn't see what's going on in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Says the Gemara, Rava says, from here I see that there's a problem. Even in a case of lo yefsher. V'hahacha, the lo yefsher. Over here there's no other choice. They have to fix the Kodesh HaKadoshim. The kamechaven. And when they're there inside, what are we concerned about? That while they're going to look into the walls of the Kodesh HaKadoshim, they may have kavanah to derive benefit of the Kodesh HaKadoshim. So therefore we're building this box, v'aser, and we're saying that it would be forbidden. This is Rava's Raya. Says the Gemara V'tizbera, is this logical? Is this a good Raya? V'ha'amar Rab Shimon ben Pazi, Amar Rab Shua ben Levi, Mishum bar Kapara. Koil, umare, v'reach. The sound that comes from the Beis HaMikdash, let's say you hear the musical instruments that the Leviim are playing, Mara, seeing the beauty of the Beis HaMikdash, Reach, the smell, the aroma of the Ketairas, let's say, which the Gemara will discuss soon, Ein Be'em Mishum Me'ilah. These are three things that are not tangible enough that you're not over on any Me'ilah, that you're deriving benefit of something which is holy from Kachim. So over here in this case, what's B'chlal the issue? That someone comes into the Kodesh HaKadoshim. You're not allowed to enter into the Kodesh HaKadoshim through the regular entrance. That's the Psukim in Parshas Achrei Mos, which you have to bring only for a Kohen Gadol and Yom Kippur, and it brings the Karbanis. Fine, so they're coming in from a different entrance, and they're coming in for a purpose to fix the Kodesh HaKadoshim. But what's the issue if they're going to see what's going on over there? There's no Me'ilah if you see. Ella, the answer is, Maila also beveis Kodesh HaKadoshim. This whole idea is a special stringency that they made in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, that people have to treat the place with a special kedusha, a special holiness. It's a special chumrah. So you can't bring any rai from it. Even if it's going to be true that in a regular case, in such a situation, it's going to be mutter, because it's lo yafsher, but yet, this is a special chumrah. So there's no rai from here b'chlal. Kedamari, others say, Amar Rava minan min Allah, when Rava wanted to bring a source for his opinion that it's forbidden in a case of efsher, lo yefsher, and v'kom mechaven, he actually brought the raya from Rab Shimon ben Pazi. Amar Rab Shimon ben Pazi, Amar Rab Shua ben Levi, Mishum bar Kapara. Koil, umara v'reyach, these three things, koil, mara, and reyach, ein be'em mishum me'ilah. There's no me'ilah, meaning there's no carbon me'ilah. The carbon and atayra of me'ilah does not apply. Now, the diak over here is, me'ilah hu deleke. You don't have to bring a carbon me'ilah for this. But ha'isura ikke. There still is an isser though. My love, for who is this isser? In what case would there be an isser? La'oisan ha'oimdim b'fnim. It's referring to the kainim that are inside the Beis HaMikdash doing their aveda. And when they do their aveda, they have to be sure not to derive any benefit of what they're seeing, of the beauty of the Beis HaMikdash. So it's a case of loy efsher, they must be there to do their aveda, but yet they should not have any kavanah to derive any benefit of the Beis HaMikdash. Why not? Because if they're deriving benefit, it's an isser. Takin, not a carbon mi'ilim in atayra, but still there would be an isser, even in a case of loy efsher, they have to be there. But kamachavin, if they'll have kavanah, they'll be over an isser. So a kayin doing his aveda inside the Beis HaMikdash has to be very focused on the work he's doing, not to at all pay attention to the beauty in the Beis HaMikdash. Why? Because he's deriving benefit of the kachim. So there's no me'ilah, you don't have to bring a carbon me'ilah for this, but you can. The isser is taking benefit of kachim, taking benefit of the beauty of the Beis HaMikdash. It's created for the beauty, for the Eibishter, just like the whole concept of me'ilah, that it's kachim. You should not derive benefit for yourself, so they should not derive any benefit for themselves. I believe that could be some machlokes about this, whether when the Gemara here says, ha'isura ikke, whether the Gemara means minatayra or rabbanon, I believe it's a machlokes about this. But if there's no me'ilah, there's no carbon me'ilah, but there still is an isser. So wouldn't you say it refers to those kainim that are inside? The loy efsher v'kom mechaven. They have to be there, but they have to be careful not to have kavanah. So from here, Rava brings a source to his opinion that even in a case where you have no choice and you have to be there, you shouldn't have kavanah. V'aser. Says the Gemara loy, that's not the pshat. La'oisan ha'oimdim b'chutz. It's not referring to the kainim. The kainim that are inside can do their aveda, and because they have to be there, they could have kavanah, even if they're enjoying the place and what they see. That's not the issue. We're talking about people that are standing on the outside and they're looking at the Beis HaMikdash. So even if there's no me'ilah minatayre, but yet they should not derive any benefit by seeing the beauty of the Beis HaMikdash. Yeah, oisan ha'oimdim b'chutz. Those that are standing outside. Zok the Gemara.
It's virtually impossible.
Okay. It depends what kavanah means. Depends what, when you say that you should not have kavanah, you should not have kavanah to derive benefit of the sight that you're seeing. You can see it, and you see the beauty, and it's the Eibishter's beauty, but to derive benefit of it. Like you go sightseeing. A person's going sightseeing, the beautiful, holy sight of the Beis HaMikdash to go sightseeing. That's what it's referring to. I'm not sure we paskin this way. I don't think we paskin this way. So that's not the structure of the Beis HaMikdash itself. That's the celebration, the simcha. Yeah. Now the Gemara goes off just for a little bit on a side point there to discuss this subject of Me'ilah that we brought back, and then we'll come back to the subject of the Machlekes Abaye and Rava. So now the Omer Rab Shimon and Pazi Omer Rab Shua ben Levi Mishum Bakapara. Koil Umare V'Reach, the sound, or what you see, or the aroma coming from the Beis Hamikdash. Ein Ben Mishum Me'ilah. There's no Me'ilah over here. Frag the Gemara, is this true? V'Reach Ein Ben Mishum Me'ilah. If you're smelling the beautiful smell that comes from the Beis Hamikdash, from the Ketairis, there's no Me'ilah in this. V'Atanya, what we learned in Abraisa, HaMefatim Mesaktairis. A person that's mefatim, or he prepares, he makes the ketairis. He takes the 11 spices that you make the ketairis and everything the way it's done, and he prepares the ketairis exactly the way it's done in the Beis Hamikdash. You're not allowed to do this. There's a lav and a issa kodesh actually to make the ketairis like the Beis Hamikdash. But if he's doing it lehislamit ba, because he's trying to learn how to prepare the ketairis, so that he knows how to prepare it when he comes in the Beis Hamikdash, he wants to do it right. That's allowed. He was doing it with the purpose that he's preparing it and then he's planning on giving it to Hektish. He wants to give it over to be used for the tzibur. In that such a case, potter. He's going to be potter from Kodesh. Now the Mefarshim point out, this doesn't mean that this is the way it was done. You can't prepare your ketairis and then donate it to the Beis Hamikdash. It has to be prepared by the Kohanim in the Beis Hamikdash. But if a person did it with this intention, even if it won't be accepted, but he's not going to be no Kodesh. Lahariach ba. When is there the Isser that you get Kodesh for if a person is making the Ketairis, exactly like it's made in the Beis HaMikdash, for the purpose to use it for the good smell, then Chayiv, then you Chayiv. That's exactly what the Isser is, not to make it like in the Beis HaMikdash. V'hameriach bo, not going to the Ketairis, not that he made, but going to the Ketairis that exists in the Beis HaMikdash, one that smells from the Ketairis in the Beis HaMikdash, potter, you potter from the Kodesh. The Kodesh is only if you make your own for the purpose of smelling it. So you'll be potter if you smell from the ketairis in the Beis Hamikdash. But elo shemal, you're going to be potter of kodesh, but the isser of me'ilah that you derive benefit of the ketairis of the Beis Hamikdash does apply. So what do I see here? That there is me'ilah from the reach of the ketairis. Elam Rav Papa says, Rav Papa, well, you're right. We're going to have to say koil umare in ben shumila. Only listening to the sound of the musical instruments played in the Beis Hamikdash, or mara, seeing the beauty of the Beis Hamikdash, ein ben shumila. There's no me'ilah. L'fishein ben mamish, it's not something tangible. But v'reyach, the aroma that comes from the Beis Hamikdash, that's something more tangible. That's something that there is me'ilah for. But only la'acha shetala timrusai ein boi mishum me'ilah hoyel v'nasis mitzvasai. After the smoke that comes out of the ketairis comes up, once the mitzvah was fulfilled with it, so we have a klal, once the mitzvah is done with it, there's no meal anymore. This is benegayet to ketairis here, and we had an example for this before, also benegayet to the blood. Once the zrika of the dam is done, min hatayra, that blood, there's no me'ilah. There's only a me'ilah midrabanan. So over here, when it says regarding the reach that there's no me'ilah, he's not referring to the reach of the ketairis before the mitzvah was done. After the mitzvah was done, then there's no me'ilah. Before the mitzvah was done, the reach is something which is tangible. Once the mitzvah is done already, so it's as if not needed anymore. It was done already, so now we say that the reich is not tangible anymore. But before it was done, it's considered to be the whole thing, what the mitzvah is about, and therefore there is me'ilah from the reich of the ketairis.
You say that the Kalbi and Papa, she didn't use any in Yerushalayim, she didn't use any perfumes because
of the reich of the ketairis that there was in Yerushalayim. Yeah. Says the Gemara, now the Gemara questions this very rule itself. Is it true that once a mitzvah was done with something, so then there's no me'ilah? L'neimre, should we say, the cholhecha the nasis mitzvasai. Anytime the mitzvah was done with something in the Beis Hamikdash, ein by mishum me'ilah, so now there's no me'ilah anymore. V'harei truma sadesha. One of the things they did every morning in the Beis Hamikdash is there was the desha, the ashes that was on the top of the mizbeach, and they would remove from that ashes and place it over there. That a spot that was placed on the side of the mizbeach. So when they remove that ashes, the nasis mitzvah. So your mitzvah is now done with this ashes. V'yesh ba mishum me'ilah. And there is me'ilah here. If you take those ashes to use it for whatever it is, there is me'ilah. The chsiv, the pasuk says, v'sam moi eitzel ha-mizbeach. You have to place it near the mizbeach. And we learn out from this, shelo yefazer. Don't just spread it around. It has to be placed in a specific spot. And v'sam moi, you have to place it there, shelo yehena. It has to be placed after there, and don't take the ashes from the mizbeach after you removed it from the mizbeach. The mitzvah was done already. Don't have any anof. It has to be placed there. And there was a nest actually that happened that the ashes became swallowed into the ground over there. Otherwise, you would have a massive pile of ashes after a few weeks but the ashes got swallowed into the ground right over there, and you're not allowed to have any anah from it. So we see right over here that even after the mitzvah is done, you can't have anah. Answers the Gemara, this is an exception. Mishum dahavu truma sadeshen, the case of the ashes, and also another case, who big day kahuna, the clothing of the kohen. And what we're speaking about over here is the clothing that a kohen wears on Yom Kippur, as the Gemara will explain. Shnei ksuvim abam ke'echad. These are two psukim, where the Torah clearly says that you're not allowed to have any anah of it, even after it's done, even after it's used. And v'chol shnei ksuvim abam ke'echad, we have a rule. Anytime the Torah repeats the same thing twice regarding two cases, ein melamden. You can't learn out from it. That becomes the exception of the rule, and in those two cases, you can't have anah even after it was used for its mitzvah. So where do we see that these are the two exceptions? Trumas Hadeshen, Hoda Mara. Trumas Hadeshen, as we've just pointed out, the pasuk says v'sam moi, that it's only the Trumas Hadeshen that has to be placed there, and you can't have anah after it was removed from the mizbeach. Big day kohuna, regarding the big day kohuna that the kohen wears on Yom Kippur. The chsiv, what does the pasuk there say after the kohen does his avodah on Yom Kippur? V'hinicham sham. The white clothing that he wears in Yom Kippur, you have to place it there. In other words, you should place it there and not use it again. For the following year, B'chlal shouldn't be used again. What this teaches me is, V'nicham sham means it has to be geniza, you have to hide it, you have to bury it, it can't be used again. So therefore, these are two psukim that are an exception. Says the Gemara, not so simple. There's an argument about this. This is understood according to the Rabbanan, the Rabbanan taka say that what do you do with the big day kohuna after it was used in Yom Kippur? You have to hide it. The Palagalayu, but Rabdaisa argues on this. What does Rabdaisa say? The Bach says, Va'omar, Avor Uyin Hain L'Kayin Hedyet. It is still fit for use for the Kayin Hedyet. Right, the Kayin Hedyet wears 4 begadim, so the Kayin Hedyet could take the gartel, or he could take whatever it is that it would work for him. He can use it for himself. So what? Sham. So how would Rabbi Daisa explain when it says v'nicham sham that you have to place it there? What it means is don't use it for the following year Yom Kippur again, but a Kayin Hedyet could use it again. So So this is not an exception. So we can't say that this is the second pasuk where you find an exception that after you had anah, that after you did the mitzvah, that is, that you could have anah. So why can't we learn out from Trumas Hadeshen to all other places that after the mitzvah was done that you can't have anah, that there's still meila? Says the Gemara, there's another case. Mishum dahava Trumas Hadeshen ve'egla arufa. You have Trumas Hadeshen and egla arufa. Shnei ksuvim abam ke'echad. These are two psukim where even after the mitzvah is done, you still can't have anah of it. Now egla arufa is not a concept of hekdesh at all, but it's also a case where there is a mitzvah. There's a mitzvah of egla arufa, and even after the mitzvah is done with it, you can't have any hana of it. When you have two psukim that tell you the same thing, ein melamden, you can't learn out from there. Egla arufa, even after they did with the egla arufa, they cut off its head, you can't have any hana from the egla arufa. And the same thing also with Trumas Hadeshen. So those are two psukim that are an exception. Otherwise, the mitzvah was done in the Beis HaMikdash, you could have hana of it. Now the Gemara brings up another problem. This whole concept that if the Torah repeats something twice, that you can't learn out from it, it becomes an exception. This is one opinion. But there's another opinion that says that even when the Torah repeats something twice in two cases, I still could learn out from there and say that the same applies to other places. What are we going to say? Why can't I learn out from Egla Arufa and Trumas Hadeshen to all other cases that even after the mitzvah was done, there's still an Issar of Me'ilah? Says the Gemara, no, over here it's not only the fact that the Torah writes it twice, Trei miyuti ksivi, the Torah writes a miyut. Ksiv v'sam moi, the Torah doesn't write v'sam, place. It says place it, place the Trumas Hadeshen there. It's saying only the Trumas Hadeshen you can't have anah of. And it also ksiv ha'arufa, only the egla arufa, it doesn't say arufa, it says ha'arufa, only the egla arufa can you not have anah after the mitzvah was done with it. But anything else, you could. Okay, this is the conclusion of this side Indian that the Gemara brought up here, the Indian of Me'ilah. Now the Gemara goes back to the machlokes of Abaye v'Rava regarding a person that's having hana from something, bal karchai. And what was the case we were talking about? In a case when it was lo yefsher, that he doesn't really have an option to do it otherwise, but for kamachaven, he's having kavanah to have hana. So the Gemara brings rise to this. Toshama, we learned in the Brais, hechnisa l'revoka. A person placed an animal together with the pairs of animals that they are all placed together, like in one piece of wood or one yoke that holds them together. So let's say you have 4 that go together. So you placed an animal inside. And then Vidosha. It went and it threshed together with the other animals. So now what's this Braisa talking about? What's the relevance of this? According to Rashi, the question is, could this animal that was placed inside and then went and threshed could be used for Egla Arufa? When it comes to the calf that's used for Egla Arufa, the Pasuk says that you only use a calf that no work was done with it, no yoke was placed upon it. And the same thing also regarding Paraduma. Taisvis, other Rishonim say this Braisa is talking about Paraduma. The Paraduma that was worked with, you can't use it later for a Paraduma. Nasata oil. So over here, you placed it inside together with the other animals. You didn't intend it to go and thresh. And then someone went and took the animals, and this animal that you placed inside came along and went and threshed together with the other animals. Sheira, it's still kosher. You placed it inside, but you didn't intend that it should go thresh together with the other animals, so it's still kosher. If you place this animal inside, you want it to be there because you want it to be able to nurse from its mother that's there. And also v'tidoish, in order that it should go and thresh together with the other animals. Psula. So then in such a case, it's possible. Says the Gemara, in this case, the animal has to be there because it has to nurse from its mother. It doesn't really have another option. This is where the animal needs to be. The Kamachad. Now once it's there, he's having kavanah to use it that it should thresh together with the other animals. The Katani Psula. And it says there in this Braisa that even though you're placing it there, not because you want it, but because you really don't have any other option. The animal has to be there to eat from its mother. But now you're having benefit from it, and it makes the animal puzzle for Egla Arufa or for Paraduma. So I can learn out from here that when something is happening, that's not your choice, you don't want to do it, but if you have Kavana, it's Asr. So this is a question on Rava's opinion. Says the Gemara, or actually a question on Abaye's opinion, that said that this would be allowed. Says the Gemara, no, Shani Hassam. In that case, it's different. The Chesiv, when the Torah gives you the criteria that you should use the animal for the Egla Rufa, what does it say? Ashaloi ubad ba. Take an Egla, a calf that was not worked with it. What's the expression the Torah uses? Ubad. Ubad almost means like it's happening on its own. It doesn't say ovad. Ovad means that you're working with it by hand directly. Ubad, it was not worked with it, even without your knowledge, even without your doing it by hand. B'kol makom, in any way. So therefore over here, this is the chiddush that even though it's lo yafsher, that you're putting the animal there because it has to feed from its mother, but nevertheless it's included in ubad, that it did work. Says the Gemara, ihachi, if that's your limud, because it says ubad, so then afiladation nami, even in the first part of the, even in the first case of the Braisa, what was the first case here? When it went and it worked on its own, you placed it inside, not because it had to feed from its mother, but just you placed it inside and then someone went and took it to thresh with it. In that case, the fact is that it did work. It should also be a problem that now it was worked with. Ubad, it was worked with. Says the Gemara, no, that case will not be a problem. Why? Because that case could be compared to the following. And here the Gemara brings another Mishnah that discusses Para Duma. Now, Para Duma and Egla Rufa are compared to each other. They have very similar halacha regarding the fact that you can't work with it, you can't place any yoke in it in order for it to be fit to be used for the Para Duma or Egla Rufa. So there's another mission that says regarding Paraduma, Shachen Alea Oif. A bird landed on top of a Paraduma. So now the Paraduma is serving as a landing spot for this bird. Do I say that because it was used for the bird to land on it, so therefore you can't use it for Paraduma anymore? No, that's not a problem. Ksheira. That's okay. Allah allow Zachar, if a Zachar came and cohabited with this Paraduma, then psula. Then that's something which will be possible. Now, what's the reason for this distinction? When a bird comes and lands on your paraduma, you're deriving no benefit from it. The owner of the paraduma is not interested in this. He doesn't want it to happen, b'chlal. So in such a case, it doesn't create any psul. But if a zachar comes and cohabits with this paraduma, the owner is happy from this. He derives a benefit from it. So even though you didn't do it, it happened on its own, it's still going to be a problem. That's what it says regarding Paraduma. So we apply the same thing also regarding Egla Arufa. When something is happening, if you place the animal inside with the other animals, and then someone takes it on its own, it goes and threshes, so that's like a bird that landed. That's something that you're not even interested in at all. So then it's okay. But if you placed it there because you needed to nurse from its mother and then it went also to thresh together, that's something that you're getting a benefit from, so then it's going to make it possible. And the Gemara explains the source of this, bringing back the pasuk that we quoted before, ubat, v'loi ubat ba. My time, Rav Papa, iksiv ovad, if the Torah would say you did not work directly, vikarinon ovad, and we would read the pasuk ovad, that you worked, then ad ovad ba'ihu. Then I would say it only becomes possible if you directly worked with it. Iksiv ubad, if we would say in the Torah the word ubad, vikarinon ubad, and we would read it ubad, both the kri and the ksiv. So we know in the Torah you have it the way it's spelled and you have it the way it's read. If it was spelled and read ubad, that it was worked with automatically without even your knowledge, so then afilim memela. Nami, I would say even something that happens on its own, like the case of a bird landing. The fact is, it serves as a landing spot for the bird. I would say that makes it possible as well. But hashre, d'chsev, ovad. What does it say in the pasuk? It's spelled without a vav. It's spelled ovad. But the karinon ubad. The way it's read is ubad with a vav, that as if it's happening on its own. So therefore, I have to darshan both aspects of this word. Uvad, dumye de ovad. It was worked with on its own, somewhat similar to a case where you worked with it directly. Ma ovad de nichale, just like when you did something directly by hand, it's something that you're interested in. Af ubad de nichale. So too, when it happened on its own, it has to be at least similar in one aspect, that it's something that you're interested. So we have three different possibilities. There's a case where it happened totally on its own, and you have no interest in it whatsoever, then it's going to be kosher. Then you have the opposite extreme where a person worked by hand, obviously it's going to be puzzle. But the chiddush is we learn out regarding the middle case where it happened on its own, but you have a benefit of it. You're interested in it. You're mechaven, even though it's loy efshir, but you're mechaven. That's the chiddush because the Torah writes ovad and you read it ubad, that even in such a case it will be puzzle as well. So therefore this is not a raya to the discussion we're having here, because here there's a separate pasuk of ovad ubad. The Gemara brings... Similar thing, right? Yeah. The Gemara brings now another raya to this. Tashama, we learn regarding a person that finds an aveda. So he has a lost object that he has to take care of, and he has to return it to its owner. So Tashama, aveda. You have a lost object, and now if you're going to keep this lost object in a closet, it's going to get ruined just by keeping it there. So you have to air it out every once in a while. However, the Mishnah says, or the Braisa says, Lo yishtechena lo al gabe mita v'lo al gabe mogad. You're not allowed to spread it out on a bed. If you have whatever it is, a towel, a sheet, so you have to spread it out for its own purpose, but do not spread it out on a bed or on a sheet or on a hook. Mogad is on a hook, litzar chay, for your own, to use it for yourself. Avol shaytcha litzar cha, agabe mita v'agabe mogad. You are allowed to spread it out on a bed or on a hook for its own purpose, in order to air it out. So now the Mishnah says, "Vayte nizdamnu loy oirchin." If you have guests, so then lo yishtechena lo al gabi mitav lo al gabi magay. Don't spread it out on a bed or on a hook. Bein litzarcha, bein litzarchay. Whether you're spreading it out for its own purpose or you're spreading it out for yourself, because if you have guests, the fact is you're going to be getting benefit showing your guests this beautiful sheet you have or towel or whatever it is. So in such a case, you shouldn't spread it out. So what do I see over here? It's a case of lo yafsher. You have to spread it out in order for it to be able to get it to be aired out. But it's mechaven. When you have guests, the fact is you're getting benefit out of this, that the guests see what you have and they think it's yours. So I see over here a case of lo yafsher and mechaven, that it's awesome. You're not allowed to spread it out in this case. So this is a raya to Rava's opinion. Says the Gemara, no, shani hasam the kolila. Over there it's different, where there's a concern that you may come to destroy it. But when you have guests, why is that? Either because of an ayin hara, the guest will see this and it'll be an ayin hara for this item itself. Or we're concerned that if you have guests, you never know who your guests are and they may steal it. So in such a case, you have to keep it away when the guests come. Nothing to do with the fact that you're having a gnaw of it. It's these concerns that we have. Okay, now the final raya. The final raya the Gemara is going to bring is also for this argument between Abaye and Rava, but the Gemara is going to actually bring a raya in their machlokes in the first. Sorry about that. The Gemara is going to bring a raya in the first lashon of the machlokes. What was the first lashon of the machlokes? That they're arguing in a case of efsher v'loy mechaven. In a case when you do have a possibility to go somewhere else, and you're going here, and you're not having kavanah to derive any benefit. Efshir v'loy mechaven. That's the case we'll bring a raya to now. Tashema, we have a case of a person selling garments, and he's selling also shatnez. Moichrei ksus, a person that's selling garments and is shatnez. Moichrin kedarkon, he can sell it in his usual way. Ubulvat shelo yiskaven b'chama mepnei achama. He should not have any intention during the summer, if he's wearing it, to demonstrate to people the garment, and he's showing them how you can wear it. So in the summertime, don't put on these garments and have kavanah, to have a gnaw of it, because of to shield yourself from the sun, or ubikshamim mipnei akshamim, in the winter, to warm yourself from the cold in the winter. So you're allowed to wear this shatnez, but not to have hana of it, not to have kavanah to have hana. Tznuin, those people that are tznuin, in other words, they're pious and they want to be extra careful with shatnez, mafshilin lachareim b'makol. They wouldn't wear it at all. They would just hang it on a stick and demonstrate it, or like today, you would put it on a mannequin to demonstrate it to people, the garment. Okay, because you never know, you may have kavanah to have hana of it, so they wanted to be extra careful, so therefore they would not wear it at all. So says the Gemara, what do we see from this case? The case over here with this shatnez, you can just easily place it on a stick. You have an option to do it that way. You don't have to wear it yourself. And what does it say over here? You have an option to do it otherwise. But if you're wearing it, as long as you're not having kavanah to have any anah of it, it's allowed. So I see that without kavanah, it's allowed. To yufte laman de masni lishne kame derave to yufte. So this braisa is a clear raya against the first version of Rava's opinion. To yufte, it actually refutes the first version of Rava's opinion. Okay, this concludes this sugya. Let's just start a little bit the next Indian here. This is going to be a hemshech in the Gemara. The Gemara goes back to what it said in the Mishnah, v'lo yasig bay. What happens with chametz? You have to burn it on Erev Pesach, but while you're burning the chametz, do not use that fire to heat up an oven to cook with it. Tan Rabbanan, so the Rabbanan learned as follows: Tanor, an oven, she'esiku beklipe arla. You heat it up an oven using peels from arla. Arla is something that not only you're not allowed to eat, you're not allowed to derive any benefit of it. You heat it up your oven from peels of arla, or bekashin shel klaya keren, or you used wheat or stalks of wheat from klaya keren, from klayin, which is also forbidden to have any anah of, and you heat it up your oven with this. Chadash, if it's a brand new oven that was never heated up before, yutatz, you have to shatter the oven. The reason is, the first time you heat up the oven, it strengthens it. We're talking here about an earthenware oven that the first time you heat it up, it strengthens the oven. So now you heated up the oven, you made the oven to be a good oven through heating it up with these things that are forbidden. So you have to demolish your oven and rebuild it again. Yashan, if the oven was heated up before already, it was used before, so heating it up is not completing the oven itself. So it's only, what are you concerned about? Using the heat from this Isurei Hana to cook in it or to bake in it. Yutzan, so you have to wait until the oven cools off, and then you can use your oven again with things that are permitted. Afaba yesapas. How about if a person baked bread in this oven that was heated up with these things that are aser? So there's an argument here. Are you allowed to eat this bread? B'di'evet, if you heated it up with it. Rabbi says, hapas asura. You're not allowed to eat this bread. Hapas muteres. The bread is allowed. And what's the basis of the argument between Rabbi and the Chachamim? The basis of the argument over here is, as we'll see soon in the Gemara, yesh shvach eitzim bepas or ein shvach eitzim bepas. Do I say that when you make a fire, so you're deriving benefit from what's asaba hana in your bread? Your bread gets hana from that fire that came from something which is asaba hana. What is the fire burning from? It's burning from something which is asaba hana. Or do I say no? How does a fire burn? The fire does not come from what's asaba hana. The fire turns into coals, into ashes, and that's what the hana is coming from. So it's not coming from what's asaba hana. That's the argument here according to Rashi. Bishla al gabi yuchalim, if you cooked it on coals, so you took what was asaba hana was already coals in advance, not that you took now fresh clipping, the clippy arla that he mentioned before, but you took already something which is coals, then divrei akoil mutter, everybody would agree that it would be allowed because it's already ashes, it's already coals, then it wouldn't be a problem. Okay, we'll take off again on this Indian tomorrow, Mitzvah Shem.